time for my May wrap-up.
Funky Fees, Funky Reads.
Pretty good reading month, I'd say. I read quite a few books and I did film my first reading vlog. I am having a bit of trouble with editing it because of a lack of storage space on my laptop, but hopefully I'll get that done. I did the book scavenger hunt and I read one of these books, and let's get into it. So the first book I finished this month was A Woman Is No Man by Etaf Rum. This was actually my April poll winner. I started at the end of April, finished it at the start of May, and I really enjoyed this. It took me about 50 pages to get into it, but after that I was really into it. It was highly emotional and there were little snippets of Arabic words slipped in, which I really enjoyed because it really added to the story and the kind of feeling of being a part of the story. So we're following first Isra in Palestine in 1990 and then her daughter Daya in Brooklyn 2008. So Isra is married off to this Palestinian man who's living in America with his family, and basically she has dreams of a future of being in America, women having more rights, having more freedom, having a great wonderful life. And she gets there and realises she's more alone than she's ever been before, because not only is her life as a woman the same, she also doesn't have any of her family around her. Her and her husband are not in love. They are husband and wife, but it's not a love story, and it's really hard for her. And then the other timeline that we follow is Daya, Isra's eldest daughter, who's living with her grandparents, so Isra's in-laws that she moved in with when she moved to America. Isra and her husband are no longer in the picture, so it's just Daya and her 3 younger sisters and then their grandparents. And Daya is having somewhat of a similar experience. She's realised that her life is controlled by men and that she doesn't have many opportunities as a woman. She is desperate to go to college and her grandmother is absolutely certain that that will not be happening. We kind of follow the story from there. I don't want to say much more, but yeah, this is a really good book. I gave this 4 stars. And another thing I would say is that obviously very important to be reading Palestinian authors at the moment. Etaf Rum was born in New York to Palestinian parents. If you don't really know anything about the Palestine situation at the moment and you would like to know a little bit more, or at least this does give you an example, very brief snippets into experiences of the Palestine war, of living in Palestine, but it's very tentative towards that. Like, it's not going to give you a lot of information, but it might make the subject matter a little bit less daunting, and I think this is a really good book. Next, I read my May poll winner, which was The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. I actually started this a long time ago, 2018 maybe. Got to, oh my god, I just seen a squashed bug in there. Got to page 432 out of 507, I want to say 505. So I got really far through, and then I remember I was just like, I have no idea what's going on, I'm just done. So I was a bit apprehensive about going back into this one, but I definitely enjoyed it a lot more this time. I think reading is a much bigger part of my life now, so where before I was reading like a page at a time, with this book I do feel like you have to read it in longer bursts closer together, otherwise it's just so confusing, and it was still pretty confusing. It took a lot of brain power to read, but it is so clever. Stuart Turton is a mastermind of writing. It's just brilliant. It's so clever. The craftsmanship is amazing. It's not my favourite book I've ever read. I'm not saying it's like brilliant, it's so brilliant, but like it's brilliantly clever. And I think clever is like one of the most descriptive words for this book, because it just is. I would definitely recommend this, but yeah, it's not a light, easy, fluffy read. It does take brain power, but it's really interesting. And I can't decide on a rating for this. I think it's probably going to be about 3.75, but that's subject to change at the moment. And next I read something completely different, The Do-Over by Lynn Painter, which very much is a light fluffy read. This is my first Lynn Painter and it wasn't on my radar really, but I walked past Waterstones and I saw it in the window and I was just like, yes, you are coming home with me. It was on display of one of like 2 books and I was like, it was just calling to me. So I went in and I picked it straight up and I read it that day and I really enjoyed it. I gave this 4 stars. So it's a time loop trope, which I wasn't expecting to love, but I went into it with an open mind, and I don't think I would want to read too many time loop books. The only other one I've read is Wrong Place, Wrong Time by Gillian McAllister, which is a very different kind of time loop. So in this one we're following Emily, and she wakes up on Valentine's Day, she's in high school, ready to say I love you to her boyfriend Josh for the first time, and she's so excited, and then she gets to school and sees him cheating on her, which is not a spoiler, it says on the back. So she's really upset, obviously. She goes home, goes to bed, and then wakes up and it's Valentine's Day again, and it keeps on happening, and she keeps bumping into this other guy, Nick. So take from that what you will. Yeah, this was going really well, and then he said to her, good girl, and I was like, I hate that, good girl, no, horrible, and that bothered me. But that was a really minor thing. I would say that the use of smirking was used a little bit too frequently for my liking, like it got a bit repetitive. And the other thing is that she calls it the donk, Day of No Consequences, and he sometimes somehow knows what that is. Like he says, oh, on your donk, blah blah blah. But I went back and back trying to figure out where she had explained that to him, and I could not find it. So I don't know if I just didn't pay attention when that happened, or if he just somehow knew. But yeah, I didn't feel like he should know that, but maybe that's a me thing, I don't know. But yeah, overall I really enjoyed this. I gave this 4 stars, and I will definitely be reading another Lynn Painter. In fact, I've already got one. Her highest rated book is Better Than the Movies, but I read the synopsis for that book when I got this one, and this one just sounded so much better to me. And then again recently when I bought Better Than You, I think, I read both of them again, and Better Than the Movies just doesn't sound that exciting to me. So I think I might read Better Than You, see what I think of that, and then if I really enjoyed that one as well, then maybe I will give Better Than the Movies a try, because everyone seems to like that one the most. So might be worth it. I don't know. Nice YA romance in a bag. And then I read The Secret Midwife, which is, well, it doesn't have a title because secret, but then she gives her name, but I don't know if it's a pseudonym. So Pippa George, or Philippa George. I feel like it's Philippa but Pippa. But I don't know. I don't know if that's her real name. It's a medical memoir about her experience of being a midwife in the NHS, and midwives are just so amazing. It's a brilliant profession. I think they're the most wonderful women. I've toyed with the idea of going into midwifery myself, still thinking about it, but obviously the NHS is a bit of a show, and yeah, that's rocky in that aspect. But I was just reading it and I was just like, yes, you go, you're so amazing. It's not the best writing, but writing is not her job. Midwifery is, and she's obviously very good at that. Having said that, I did cry at the end. It was so emotional, and it was just, I just felt like proud of her and the profession as a whole. I just think midwives are so fantastic, and I admire every single one of them out there. And again with this one, 3.75, maybe 4, not sure. But I would really recommend this if you're interested in midwifery or medical kind of jobs and people's experiences of that. I just thought it was really lovely. And then finally I did my book scavenger hunt, and the book I got was Black Box Thinking by Matthew Said, which was recommended to me a few years ago by my great uncle Graham, and I have been really looking forward to reading it. I thought it was going to be like a self-help book about marginal gains and the secrets of high performance, which to me it wasn't. Like, you could take what they've said in this book and apply it to your own personal life, but I would have liked to have seen a few more examples of that. So the main themes of this book is that it compares the aviation industry and the healthcare industry, and the aviation industry actively analyses errors, whereas the healthcare system hides them, and so nobody learns from them. Whereas in aviation, people learning from their mistakes, the industry is learning from its mistakes, and quite often those mistakes are not repeated, or at least not anywhere near as often as they are in the healthcare system. So one of the statistics was that if ratio wise and proportion, percentage wise, whatever, the number of medical errors that are happening that don't need to be are the equivalent to 9/11 happening once every 2 months, or 2 Boeing 747s, or 747, I can never remember, but you know what I mean, 2 big planes crashing a day, which obviously society would never accept, but yet that's happening in healthcare, and like, people just crack on, it just happens. So the point is really interesting, and it was good food for thought. However, the whole book is just, to me, the same point being made over and over and over again, and it was quite dense. It wasn't like a motivational read. It was inspiring in the way that I was like, oh yeah, that needs to be thought about, and oh yeah, and I have tried to be more open about my mistakes, but it was kind of like reading an academic paper, which is fine, but it's just not what I was expecting and not what I was really hoping for it to be. I will say the openings to a lot of the chapters are quite abrupt, especially chapter 1 and chapter 4, so be mindful of that. But some of the points in here were really interesting. So for example, one of the, I can't remember which airline it was, but a big airline, the CEO decided to remove a single olive from every salad on board their planes, like over a year, I think, and in the year they saved $500,000 just from removing one olive. So I think that's the point of marginal gains, showing how such a small change or a small thing can have a huge impact. And then I have a few quotes that I read in here which I liked. So Andrew Stanton, the director of Finding Nemo and WALL-E, be wrong as fast as you can, and you can't get to adulthood without going through puberty. You're going to make mistakes, get them out of the way and learn from them, basically. David Brailsford said, if you break down a big goal into small parts and then improve on each of them, you will gain a huge increase when you put them all together. And I think this just came from Matthew Said himself. The more we have riding on our judgments, the more we are likely to manipulate any new evidence that calls them into question. They had each, and then an example, he said, they had each reframed the evidence to fit in with their pre-existing beliefs. So basically saying that people don't want to be wrong so much that when they actually get proved wrong, they go wild, come up with the craziest explanations for why those things have happened. And there was a whole chapter on wrongful prison convictions, and people, like when the ability to test DNA came out from crime scenes, so many people who had been in prison for over a decade or however many years were found to be not guilty, but the people who had prosecuted them and put them in jail were like, oh no, well, maybe that wasn't his DNA in that girl's underwear that we charged him for, but that doesn't mean he wasn't there. Maybe the 11-year-old girl had sex with her dad the night before. Like, just making shit up because they could not face the fact that, yes, okay, I was wrong and I'm really sorry. Which was very interesting. And then my prompt jar prompt for May was a book lacking in good flop. So basically a stiff book like this. Oh, that one's not too bad, but I don't know. You know when a book's really stiff and horrible, not floppy. Which I did start at the end of the month, but I finished it this month in June. So that'll be next month's wrap up. Happy June, happy summer, and thank you for watching. See you in the next one.